Welcome, all hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters, to the only fish and wildlife conservation podcast that goes behind the scenes of the business of conservation, the Connecting with Conservation podcast. Our podcast is hosted by John Gassett from the Wildlife Management Institute and Jim Curcuruto of the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. John and Jim will talk with experts from all sectors of the conservation arena about their passion for conserving the great outdoors. So please welcome our hosts of the Connecting with Conservation podcast, John and Jim.
Welcome to another episode of Connecting with Conservation, the only podcast that goes behind the scenes of the business of conservation in our country. I'm John Gassett with the Wildlife Management Institute, and I'm your co-host for Connecting with Conservation. Today I'm here with my fellow co-host, Jim Curcuruto from Outdoor Stewards. Jim, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for asking, and excited again. You know, the Connecting with Conservation podcast, man, we've had on pushing 50 guests right now and about 50 different stories and topics. But one of the things we haven't covered on Connecting with Conservation is how sometimes legislation affects conservation, right? So today we got a very knowledgeable guest, very timely guest, Dan Wolgin from Ammunition Depot, who's going to tell us a little bit about some of the things going on at Ammunition Depot, some current events and some fun stuff and maybe some not so fun stuff, but all necessary stuff. So Dan, welcome. And why don't you give us a little background on you personally, and then we'll get into the other stuff.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, John. Before I jump into that, if you don't mind, I just want to say thank you to you guys. Jim, we've worked together for a long time. I've been aware of what you've been doing with Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. But before that, you spent over a decade at NSSF, also working for the industry. And without the efforts of people like you, doing what you've been doing, both for the industry, the shooting sports industry, and for conservation. I love your acronym HATS. So for the hats of us out there, we'd be in a much worse position. So I wanted to start by just thanking you guys for your efforts and really dedicating your lives to making those pursuits better for all of us that enjoy them. So.
All right. I appreciate that. And okay, so that's a wrap. It was good having you on, Dan.
We're good. Yeah. Doesn't get any better than that. As far as my background, I'm the CEO of Ammunition Depot. I've been doing that for a little bit over a decade. And over that time, we've really grown a lot and gotten to experience kind of firsthand the difficulties that some of our customers face in enjoying those outdoor pursuits, which ultimately lead to the desire for conservation. And so it's a really important part of the conservation story is enjoying the outdoors. We don't conserve it for it to just exist. We conserve it to enjoy it. And so if people aren't getting out there and enjoying it or making it harder for them to do that, they're less inclined to dedicate their time and effort and money to those conservation endeavors. So we've seen a lot over the years, and we try to do our part like you to make it a little bit better for everybody.
Yeah. And so you guys have been around, I guess, give a little bit of history of Ammunition Depot. I'm going to say push 2011 or something like that you started. So you've seen a lot of stuff, and why did you get started, and where are you now, I guess?
Yeah. So the company has a really weird history. We didn't actually start with the intention of being a retailer. The company was started as an investment fund, investing in ammunition as an alternative commodity, ammunition being made of lead, copper, and brass mostly, some other energetic compounds in there. And those being metals, they tend to follow that kind of commodity appreciation curve. And so we actually started as a hedge fund, investing in ammunition, expecting inflation for various reasons. We were wrong for a long time until we were right over the last 5 years or so. But in the meantime, we were able to grow a really great operating company and retailer, kind of a little bit by accident. Wasn't the original intention, but when we saw that opportunity and we saw that need that we could fill in the market, providing that great customer service to people who really needed it and access to the products that we had and had, warehouse full of, and the relationships that we have with manufacturers and distributors, we kept going in that angle, and we do everything that we can to keep providing those things and a larger and larger and larger subset of those things. So we've moved beyond just ammunition, firearms, accessories. We're moving again beyond that into maybe deeper into kind of the accessory side, hunting side, clothing, shoes. Eventually, we'll get into everything, blinds, scent marking, scent masking, that kind of stuff. So um, we just try to do the best that we can for those people like us who love the shooting sports, love the outdoors, and want to get out there and have fun. We're obviously also the other side of the industry is the self-defense side of it. We have a lot of products for that, and we do also focus very heavily on that side of things, and have watched the development and introduction of different self-defense projectiles and technologies and stuff like that with great interest over the years as it continues to evolve.
So Dan, being a startup that was an investment firm in ammunition, I imagine COVID was a game changer for you,
Yeah,
as
we
it was for a lot of companies, both good and bad.
we were a pretty large company already before COVID, which I actually feel very very blessed for, very lucky for. It put us in a position to be able to survive, and I say that that sounds really crazy. However, the demand that came through COVID was so difficult to meet that had we been smaller and had less processes and systems, less staff, less of a footprint, it would have been much, much more difficult for us to provide the level of service that we really demand of ourselves. And so we got a little bit behind, right? As most people did on shipping and that kind of stuff. It was a constant struggle to keep inventory, but I think that we did a pretty good job of that. We tried to keep prices as low as we could through that. Of course, our costs went up, not only our soft costs, personnel, and that kind of stuff, but just our cost of goods went up to be able to get the ammunition in. We started importing lots of ammunition from overseas because we couldn't find it domestically, and of course that's generally more expensive because we have a great manufacturing base within this country, particularly for ammunition. But yeah, demand went way, way up, and we learned a lot. Mostly a lot of what not to do, how not to build stuff, how not to try to meet that demand. But we learned some things by doing it the right way also, and came out the other side of it a different and I think better company, both for our customers, for our stakeholders, but also for our employees. We worked really hard through COVID to be sensitive to everybody's kind of perspectives and their level of comfort, and try to provide for people to be able to work in a way that was safe but also comfortable, and that they were happy with. So we provided a lot of protective equipment for people, but also on the other side, didn't do what you saw in a lot of places where we're really forcing over compliance with things that maybe weren't necessary. So finding that line and walking that line was difficult, but something we really tried to do. And then it taught us a lot about how to be a good company for our employees afterwards, where obviously nobody's whatever wearing masks or eating 6 feet apart from each other anymore. Um, uh, but we were able to create, I think, a healthier environment for our employees afterwards, air filtration systems and stuff like that, that maybe were necessary for COVID. I don't know that we'll ever really know, but they do work. And so now the warehouse is healthier than it would have been otherwise, because we have, this higher tech kind of air filtration, and these kind of things help keep people healthy just from whatever, the flu, the cold, normal stuff. So yeah, game changer puts it lightly.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, along, like I said, we kind of known each other for 10 years now. And one of the things I respected about you is that you care about your customers and you do right by your customers. And during COVID, when I hate to say it, there are companies out there that were gouging their customers. And some of those companies ain't around anymore, but you guys are flourishing because you took care of your customers, not only by not gouging their prices and lying to them about inventory and shipping dates and stuff like that. You're honest with them, but you also kind of put your money where your mouth is. When some of your customers are, getting suppressed, let's say, you are stepping up for them. So let's get into, I guess, what's going on in California recently.
Sure. So in 2016, California passed a law that was really made up of a couple of different parts that in our view, was very restrictive on the kind of Second Amendment rights, among some other constitutionally protected rights of California citizens with respect to their ability to procure ammunition. Um, Among other restrictions that were included in the law, the kind of big ones were this law required, and I believe this phase went into effect maybe January 1st of 2018, a background check accompanying every purchase of ammunition within California. So you're already background checked to get the firearm. Now they want to background check you and charge a fee, obviously associated with any purchase of ammunition. No minimums. You, if somebody was selling one round and you wanted to buy one round, there would be background check associated with that. Um, as a result, it also prohibited the ability for California citizens to have ammunition shipped to them from out of state or to personally import ammunition from out of state. So they couldn't even, if they're live near the border and they're on a trip into another state, Nevada, Arizona, whatever, they're at their favorite gun shop and they want to buy a box of ammo and bring that back into the state. They weren't really able to do that anymore, nor could they order from companies like Ammunition Depot, which harms the customer in a whole lot of ways, not the least of which is the price factor. So, large online ammunition vendors like ourselves tend to have very competitive pricing. And so if you're buying, more than a box, I wouldn't suggest buying a box of ammunition that way, but you want to buy a case of ammunition or something like that, it can be really cost effective to do that online. And they were no longer able to do that. On top of that, the background check system, surprise, surprise, didn't work very well. And so lots of people who should, under the law, be able to buy ammunition were getting denied, including, and this may be apocryphal, but I heard it from sources that I trust, and we're, as you'll hear in this podcast, very involved in this litigation, as the governor was touring the state, touting the great effect of this new law, his security detail was denied being able to purchase ammunition. So obviously not the people they were trying to prevent, getting their hands on ammunition. And if I want to be as generous as possible, I understand the underlying desire. We all want to keep firearms and ammunition out of the hands of people who are going to do the wrong thing with them. We just kind of greatly differ in our opinion of how to go about doing that, and where the line is drawn insofar as protection of our rights to try to achieve that goal. Certainly, if you were able to snap your fingers and wave a magic wand and firearms didn't exist anymore, I guess the wrong people wouldn't have them either. But neither would the sportsmen's and the hunters and people using them to self-defense and people using them for recreation. And we need to find a better line than let's make this harder or even impossible for everybody. So we had the opportunity to join a lawsuit against the state of California, really spearheaded by the NRA and the CRPA, which is the California Rifle and Pistol Association, to bring those claims and bring those arguments in federal court against the state of California that their law was unconstitutional, both on Second Amendment grounds, also on grounds under another part of the Constitution called the Commerce Clause. We have won every way that you can win so far, and yet Californians are still kind of, in my opinion, oppressed under the thumb of this law, and it's unfortunate the way that our justice system works. It can be a very, very, very long fight, and so we've been fighting this since 2017. So that's 8 years. We just won again at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And unsurprisingly, California availed themselves of their rights under our justice system and the rules of procedure there in the appellate court, which I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert at that stuff. Obviously, we've become a little bit more well-versed in that over the years fighting this lawsuit. But they've availed themselves of the opportunity to ask for review. And as you may or may not be surprised, the Ninth Circuit has a particular track record with respect to cases that go in the favor of protecting Second Amendment rights. 100% of the time they are requested to review. It's called en banc review, which is a review theoretically by the whole court. In that circuit, it's by 11 judges. It's requested 100% of the time that the ruling is in the favor of kind of Second Amendment rights, and overturned 100% of the time. So that remains to be seen. We'll see what happens with that, but it will take probably another year before we find out. And that means for another year, Californians still have to deal with these onerous restrictions on their rights. And then we don't know what's next. If it rules in our favor, um, California would have the opportunity to appeal to the Supreme Court, who may or may not want to hear that case. They would almost certainly ask for a stay on the ruling while that's considered, which they may or may not get. So even if we win again, Californians may still have, another year or years of dealing with this law until it's overturned. In the end, though, it's not important just for Californians. Oftentimes, California is the tip of the spear for the country, for those that want to further restrict Second Amendment rights. They really are, let's say, for lack of a better term, progressive. They really get out there in arguments and restrictions that are likely not constitutional, like I believe this one isn't, and judges have agreed with us so far. But once that is codified under law, whether it gets to the Supreme Court or somebody kind of drops that fight earlier, other states often follow. And so we have seen that happen in other areas where states like New York have picked up a similar regime that other states have had in the past. And so it's really important that when we see these things happen, if they are over the line, that somebody steps up and does something about it. So I'm very grateful to the NRA and the California Rifle and Pistol Association for kind of spearheading that effort and for giving us the opportunity among other plaintiffs to join them in doing that. We decided to kind of heed that call for the public, for the American people. If we win, yeah, it'll help us. It'll also help every ammunition company, every vendor who operates outside the state of California, and those inside the state that want to be able to ship to their customers. But I think most importantly, it helps the American people so that they can continue to have access to, in this case, ammunition without their Second Amendment rights being kind of onerously curtailed. Ultimately, that leads over into firearms accessories that are important for firearms, like magazines. There's lots of cases about magazine limitations, which other people are fighting that fight, and we are very grateful to them for those fights. But we have to keep fighting, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I guess one of the side effects of that is if you're a Californian, you probably tend to want to buy in bulk then, rather than making a bunch of little transactions with background checks. Just buy as much as you can at one time. But I'm sure there's probably a law limiting how much you can buy at a time too. So
I don't remember if there's a limit on how much you can buy or not, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. If there were, and surely it can be very difficult and frustrating and confusing for California citizens as we win, but they still can't buy ammo. Even we were very unsure after the latest ruling what it actually meant. What is the great? We won. What is the current state of the law? Can Californians buy? Can't they buy? Are we waiting to hear more? That situation has become more clear over the following weeks, and certainly clarified with California finally requesting en banc review, that at the moment, and California DOJ has made this clear in a statement as well, this law is still in effect. And they at least, let's say, reserve their right, if not intend to enforce that law, should they have cause to or need to. So Californians still can't buy ammo online, still can't bring ammo in from out of state, and have to deal with these restrictions.
Yeah, you're bringing back some. You're making me shake here. Bad memories.
Shaky over there, yeah.
Dealing with courts, but I remember when it first went into effect. It affected hunters because they weren't allowed to carry ammunition in. If I wanted to go hunt in California from South Carolina, I couldn't bring ammo with me, and I couldn't buy it there. So I guess
So it was
hunt.
very difficult as a
Right.
non-Californian resident in the beginning. I'm not sure if they fixed that now, to be able to do that inside California because you don't have California ID, and so it became difficult to.
Right. Same thing with shooting competitions, target shooting, same thing. But so I said I'm having a little flashbacks because I got deposed as an expert witness when I was with NSSF several times in California. Miller versus the Attorney General, Duncan versus the Attorney General, mostly on capacity of magazines and AR platform firearms. But you guys have a really high-profile plaintiff, right? That California resident that folks should know about is stepping up as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about her?
the lead plaintiff, as there is often many plaintiffs on here, but there'll be one that's at the top. You know, you just mentioned Duncan Miller. These are the name that get associated with the case. So Kim Rhodey is the lead plaintiff for this. If you don't know who she is, she's I think the most decorated female Olympian, if not Olympian, from the United States. She's a skeet and trap shooter, clays shooter, and man, she just wins everything. She's so good. And obviously, training in the state, if you can't get access to ammunition, you can't have your sponsors easily ship you ammunition into the state. It really interferes with your ability to kind of prepare and train for that. And that's just then indicative of all of the people who enjoy doing those same things. She may be the best in the world at it, but you don't have to be the best in the world at it to really be negatively impacted by these restrictions. And so she really stepped up in a big way to really put her name and her face on it to try to help protect these rights for those kind of sportsmen and enthusiasts in California.
You know, what a spokesperson too, though, for something like that. It's
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that.
I've told people before, actually on this podcast, that I have a hard time watching her when she shoots in an Olympics or whatever, because you know, I'm not a good shot anyway, and watching her just embarrasses the crap out of me because she does not miss. You know?
No, it's amazing. It really is amazing what she can do. And John, I'm right there with you. I've got my two over-unders sitting right there, and they don't hit nearly as much as Kim Rhodey does. So
It's all about the gun, not
I
the
try to blame
outfit.
the equipment.
yeah, that's what it is. Her gun's much better than mine, and it's clearly the firearm and not the sportsman.
That and the little Kevlar vest my doves wear when they come across my field.
Yeah, that's right. I blame my golf clubs too.
Yep.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, I tell you, so that's, the not so fun part of things, but you also do some other stuff that helps support other organizations. I know you just said you just started a new fund. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of the other stuff that Ammunition Depot is supporting?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we do we're really proud of, and I think I'll start with a different one and then come to that because it really is what led into that. And so, um, as you may have heard earlier in the podcast, Jim and I first met each other while he was working with the NSSF, which is the National Shooting Sports Foundation, or sometimes referred to as the National Shooting Sports Association, which is an industry group that does a lot of different things, but among others, tries to increase participation in the shooting sports, whether that's competitions or just going to the range. And we had the opportunity to get involved years ago, helping to manage a program that at the time I think was called Rimfire Challenge, or maybe First Shots at the beginning. That the name has changed over time, which is a really wonderful program that aids ranges in putting on a shooting event, can be competition or just kind of exploratory event, focused on 22 LR rimfire cartridge, which I don't know about you guys, first thing I ever shot. It tends to be the first thing like anybody ever shoots, um, because it's inexpensive and it's super fun and it's really easy to shoot. Don't make the mistake like I did of the first thing I put into my son's hand was an over under, and not 12 gauge. I'm not that crazy, but you can imagine it didn't go so well. And so later I've got the Savage Rascal and was, oh, let's start somewhere else. It's more fun. So we were able to really support that program over the years by being kind of the distribution partner. And so at our own expense, we warehouse the ammunition for that and handle all of the distribution. So ranges who are interested in that program, you can still go to NSSF's website. I think it's called First Shots now. Um, you can find that if you're interested in putting on an event. There's details there, and when you get to the point in the process where you need the ammunition, you'll actually end up reaching out to us, and our customer service team will, at no charge to you, put that order together and get that ammunition together and shipped to you so that you have it in time for that event. And it's really there not for the ranges, but for the individuals. So for the people who want to introduce their kids to shooting but don't know how, don't know where to start. Maybe they don't have any 22 pistols or rifles or whatever. This program, among others like it, really gives them a great organized platform to be able to kind of introduce new shooters. Doesn't have to be kids. Uh, I introduced my wife to shooting, not when she was a child, and she started with 22 pistol. So it's a great opportunity to be able to introduce new shooters. NSSF had other programs, which I'm not sure which among these are still active, but there was one called And One or Plus One, where the idea was bring somebody with you. Bring somebody with you to the range. Bring somebody with you to go shoot trap skeet clays. Get people out there to see what's going on. And the idea behind that was really near and dear to my heart. And Jim, I know it is from you, from hearing you speak about Outdoor Stewards Conservation Foundation. People, we need to kind of demystify. People need to understand what's going on. Uh, Guns themselves are not scary. Shooting sports are not scary. They're super fun. We are so lucky that shooting firearms is really fun because if we can get people to come and experience it, most of the time they tend to like it, or at least they understand it. Maybe they were a little scared, a little excited. Maybe they don't want to do it again, but they've experienced it. They get it. They can understand where you're coming from. I have neighbors and friends that don't own any firearms and probably will never own any firearms. But if I have the opportunity to take them with me, go to the range, put some holes in paper, or go outdoors and shoot some clays, they tend to enjoy it, even if they're never going to go back. They got a big smile on their face. And the next time they hear about some politician that wants to take away all the guns, maybe they don't think that's such a good idea. So I agree with you that that's very important. We need to make sure that uh, people understand and are supportive of our right and ability to go hunt and feed ourselves and take excess harvest and donate that, but also to just go have fun and self-defense. The self-defense side is very important as well. Then and there's a lot that can be done there with training, which is provides a lot of other benefits. Not just in training for shooting sports. Um, Having experienced all that and been able to give back through NSSF, my partner Seth Weinstein and I, really driven by Seth, I give credit where credit is due, wanted another way to be able to help and be able to help a little bit more and a little bit more directly. And so we started a charity called the Veterans Education Tuition Foundation, VETF, which is at this point a small organization. Nobody takes any salaries from it, so 100% of what we collect is used for tuition grants to children of fallen soldiers. We start in the state of Florida, so two Florida schools. So if there's somebody within the state of Florida, um, children of fallen soldier, and you want to go to FSU or UF or any other Florida state school, and you're looking for help, you can check out our site. Just Google Veterans Education Tuition Fund, you'll find it, and you can apply. And we are not yet able to fully fund those scholarships for people, but having been there, and I know that every little bit helps, and so we commit over the course of their education. So it's not just a one-time grant, but we commit to help them throughout the course of their education. And our goal is also to go above and beyond just giving financial support, but also to provide some mentoring support to the extent that we can do that in a way that's helpful to those children, to help them. Their family really committed, gave so much for us that we want to be able to give back to them in a very kind of direct and meaningful way. So um, we do that. It's young and growing, and uh, if the only thing it ever does is bring awareness to people that, hey, you can step up and help too in your own little way with your own thing in your community, I'd be happy with that. If instead it grows and we're able to fund hundreds of kids making their way through college, man, that would be phenomenal.
That's awesome. And so, it's amazing. We could, we're near an end of our half hour. It always goes so quick, and there's plenty of other things that you guys are doing. But first of all, Dan, it was great to reconnect with you. It's been a while. It's good to see you. Like I said, somehow, our hair color changed over the years, but it's great to, hear of all the stuff that you're continuing to do, stepping up to help hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters, and firearm owners, and working with some great partners there, and putting up. It is a lot of stress. I think that's how some of this gray hair comes, is working within the court system, right? That doesn't help, but if you're not a customer of Ammunition Depot, check them out. Right? And Dan will give you a little bit more where you can find information. If you're sitting on your hands and not doing anything, think about, what Ammunition Depot is doing. They're putting their money where their mouth is. You don't have to put your money where your mouth is, but you should be paying attention to legislation. If you don't live in California, you say, "Oh, it doesn't bother me." It does affect you because they don't stop, at one state. There's legislation going on in just about every state you have to pay attention to. Okay, so that's the not so fun stuff. The fun stuff is invite somebody to come with you. Go to the range, see the smile on their face when they hit their first target or harvest their first animal. But to wrap it up, why don't you give us where people can get more information, websites, social media, newsletters, that type of stuff?
Yeah, sure. You can find us all over the internet at ammunitiondepot.com. So www.ammunitiondepot.com. But anywhere, any social media that we haven't been kicked off yet, you can find us, Ammunition Depot. We have many times been kicked off and had to start over for what we don't know. They won't tell us. But everywhere we're allowed to be, we are. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, I don't think will let us, or sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. Who knows? Rumble, Truth Social, we're out there in all those places. So come say hi. You got a question, ask it. We'll try and answer. And if you're looking for firearms, ammunition, or accessories, come check us out. www.ammunitiondepot.com.
And Dan, just as a follow-up, can you get to your VetF organization through there as well, or is there a separate website for that? And I'm assuming you operate off donations there as well, right?
We do. So right now it's actually been almost entirely funded by myself and my partner. So we would love donations, would allow us to reach, even a little bit further. In that way, we have gotten a few small donations, from not from the two of us. There is a website. I think it's vetf.org, but if it's not there, Veterans Education Tuition Fund on Google. I will make sure that you can find it somewhere on ammunitiondepot.com. So if it's not there now, it will be soon.
Perfect. Well, Dan, thanks so much for coming on. It's good to meet you. This has been very enlightening. Appreciate all you're doing for the firearms industry, for conservation, because we tell people on this show $1 billion a year in conservation funding comes from the sale of ammunition and firearms in this country. So if you like your wildlife, if you like clean air, clean water, healthy outdoors, you like wildlife watching, bird watching, all that, consider patronizing some of these companies. Consider patronizing Ammunition Depot and others that pay that excise tax, that fund all the conservation and all the fish and wildlife that we know and love. So appreciate you listening to our show. If you like us, subscribe and give us a like. We always appreciate comments as well, and hope to see you next week. And other than that, we'll see you in the woods or on the water. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Connecting with Conservation podcast. Please do us a favor and tell your buddies, friends, family, and others about what you've learned here today. If you like what you heard, come on back anytime and listen to another episode of the Connecting with Conservation podcast.